Hi everyone, I'm Victoria Chen, a former elementary school teacher. My story is about how helping out turned into full-time, unpaid childcare for my sister-in-law Jennifer's kids, thanks to my mother-in-law Margaret's relentless insistence on family duty. It all started with a phone call. I was grading papers after school when Jennifer's name lit up my phone. Her voice, sickly sweet, carried that telltale note of a looming favor. "Vicky, I hate to ask, but could you watch the kids for a couple of hours? My spa appointment ran late, and Mother's busy with her charity event." I hesitated, glancing at the ungraded assignments. "Jennifer, I have parent-teacher conferences in an hour." "Please, the nanny quit last week, and I haven't had time to find a new one. Just this once." Of course, just this once quickly became twice a week, then 3 times, then every day. Jennifer's excuses piled up: yoga classes, lunch meetings, endless shopping trips. All the while, Margaret's condescending voice replayed in my head. "Family helps family, Victoria. Or didn't your parents teach you that?" 3 months later, I was sitting in my principal's office, struggling to explain why I'd been late to work 4 times in 2 weeks. The traffic. Mrs. Rodriguez gave me a sharp but kind look. "Victoria, you're one of our best teachers, but the tardies, the missed meetings. What's going on?" I couldn't tell her the truth, that I had spent my mornings cooking breakfast for Jennifer's kids, driving them to school, and covering for her emergencies. That evening, I vented to my husband, Mark. "The school's starting to notice. I can't keep bailing Jennifer out." Mark ran his hands through his hair, his usual sign of stress. "I know it's a lot, but Mom's right. Family helps family. Jennifer's having a hard time with Tom traveling so much for work." "A hard time?" I snapped. "She spent $5,000 on a handbag last week while I'm running myself ragged." "She needs to maintain appearances for Tom's business," Mark argued. "And it's not like you're doing this for free. Mom's letting us stay in the guest house, remember?" "Ah yes, the guest house, a gilded cage with strings attached." Margaret had insisted we move in temporarily after our apartment was sold, claiming, "No point wasting money on rent. Family takes care of family." The final straw came at Sunday dinner. Jennifer swept in 2 hours late, arms leaden with designer shopping bags, while I sat exhausted after watching her kids all weekend. "Oh, Victoria," Margaret announced. "Jennifer has a gala next weekend. You'll need to take the children from Friday through Sunday. And don't forget Emma's piano practice. Her recital is coming up." I opened my mouth to object, but Jennifer cut me off with a laugh. "I'd ask the new nanny, but she's part-time, and you're just so much better with them. They adore their Aunt Vicky." "Actually," I said, my voice trembling with frustration, "I can't. I have parent-teacher conferences." The room fell silent. Margaret set her fork down with a sharp clink. "Surely you can reschedule, Victoria. This is family." "My job is important too," I replied, meeting her glare. Jennifer waved dismissively. "It's just teaching. Anyone can do that." Something inside me snapped. "You're right, Jennifer. They're your children. Maybe it's time you started acting like it." The table erupted in gasps, and Margaret's face darkened with rage. "Mark," she barked, "you need to talk to your wife about her priorities." That night, I sat in the guest house surrounded by student papers, anger bubbling under the surface. I opened my laptop and started documenting everything, every late morning, every missed obligation, every unpaid hour. This was the beginning of my stand. I didn't know then how ugly things would get, but one thing was certain: I was done being their doormat. The following week made it painfully clear how Margaret and Jennifer viewed my so-called attitude problem. I came home from school to find Jennifer's kids already in our guest house, their homework scattered across the coffee table. "I dropped them off an hour ago," Jennifer's text read. "Emergency shopping trip for Tom's business dinner. Mother said you'd understand." No request. No warning. Just an expectation. I looked at the kids, Emma, 10, and the twins, Luke and Lily, 7. None of this was their fault, but resentment churned in my chest. "Aunt Vicky," Emma began hesitantly, "Mom said you'd help me practice for my piano recital." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. It was Mrs. Rodriguez, my principal. My stomach sank. "Victoria, we need to discuss your position for next year," she said, her voice kind but firm. "Your performance has been concerning these past months." That night, sleep eluded me. The thought of losing my career, The one thing I'd worked so hard to build kept me tossing and turning. Around midnight, Mark came in from work. "The kids were here again?" he asked, glancing at the scattered toys. "Your sister didn't even ask," I replied, sitting up. "Mark, my principal called today. My job's on the line." He sighed heavily, sitting on the edge of the bed. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Mom mentioned she'd give us an allowance if you focus on family duties." I stared at him, incredulous. "An allowance? Like I'm a teenager." "It would solve everything," he pressed, avoiding my gaze. "You could help Jennifer more, and we'd still have income." "I didn't spend 6 years in college to become your sister's unpaid nanny," I said, my voice trembling. "Don't you see what they're doing?" "They're helping us," he shot back. "We live in their guest house, Victoria. The least we can do is contribute." The next morning, I called in sick, a first for me. Instead of grading papers, I opened my laptop and began tallying everything. Hours spent babysitting, missed work obligations, out-of-pocket expenses for meals and activities. The numbers were staggering. I also started recording conversations, Jennifer dropping the kids off unannounced, Margaret's subtle digs at my career and background, their assumptions about my time and worth. The breaking point came at another Sunday dinner. Margaret's latest declaration hit like a brick. "Jennifer needs to focus on her social obligations," she announced. "Victoria, you'll take over full-time care of the children. We'll rent out your guest house to offset the loss of your teaching salary." "Rent out?" I echoed, my stomach twisting. "Where will we live?" "Oh, there's space in the staff quarters above the garage," she replied breezily. "The old housekeeper's apartment is quite adequate." Jennifer beamed. "Isn't Mother generous? This way, you'll be closer to the kids, and I can focus on my charity work." Mark's hand gripped my knee under the table, a silent plea to stay quiet. But I was done being silent. "And what about my career?" I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Margaret waved dismissively. "Teaching was a nice hobby, dear, but it's time to grow up and accept your role in this family." "My role?" I said, pulling out my phone. "Let me clarify my role." I began reading from my spreadsheet. In the past 6 months, I've provided 960 hours of childcare. At standard rates, that's worth $19,200. I've missed 8 parent-teacher conferences, risking my professional standing. I've covered $3,400 in expenses with no reimbursement. The silence was deafening. Jennifer's face turned crimson. "Are you billing us?" she stammered. "No," I replied evenly. "I'm setting boundaries. Starting tomorrow, I'm no longer available for childcare. You'll need to hire a full-time nanny, one you actually pay." Margaret's voice dropped to a dangerous chill. "Mark, control your wife." But I wasn't finished. I pulled out a second document, a letter from a lawyer friend. "I've also consulted someone about labor laws and coerced domestic work. Would you like to hear what they had to say?" The explosion was immediate. Margaret threatened eviction. Jennifer sobbed about family betrayal. Mark sat frozen, watching the facade of their perfect family shatter. But when I mentioned lawyer, I saw it. The flicker of fear in Margaret and Jennifer's eyes. As I left the mansion that night, Margaret's parting words rang in my ears. "You'll regret this, Victoria." But I smiled, because for the first time, I had a plan. What I didn't expect was how quickly they'd retaliate, or how their desperation would become the very thing that set me free. The retaliation came swiftly. The next morning, I woke to find the guest house's electricity cut off. Technical issues, Margaret claimed with a thin smile. By afternoon, the water was shut off too. "Perhaps this will help you reconsider your attitude," she said when I confronted her. "Family needs to stick together, Victoria." I was ready. Pulling out my phone, I hit record. "Are you admitting to cutting off utilities to force me into unpaid childcare?" Her smile wavered. "Don't be dramatic, and stop recording. It's rude. It's protection," I replied, "just like the copies I have of every text where you and Jennifer demanded I skip work to watch the kids, or the security footage of Jennifer dropping them off without notice." Her face stiffened. "Security cameras?" "In the guest house," I said. "For the children's safety, of course. They show a lot of interesting patterns of abandoned childcare." By the next day, the utilities were mysteriously restored, but Margaret and Jennifer weren't done. They spread rumors about my unstable behavior and even called my school. claiming concern over my emotional state around children. Their mistake? They put everything in writing. Texts, emails, voicemails, all a clear, damning trail. The breaking point came at a charity gala. I wasn't invited, of course, but my friend Rebecca, who was catering, recorded Margaret and Jennifer's conversation. Once Victoria's fired, she'll have no choice. Jennifer's voice rang clear. Mother's already arranged it with her friend on the school board. And Mark? Someone asked. Oh, he knows where his inheritance lies, Margaret said with a laugh. He'll divorce her if she doesn't fall in line. We've already discussed it. That night, I played the recording for Mark. His face turned ashen. They're bluffing, he murmured, but the truth was written all over his face. Are they? I asked. When's the last time you stood up to them? After a long pause, he finally asked, What do you want to do? I pulled out a folder. Option 1. I go public with this evidence. Labor law violations, coercion, defamation. It'll destroy their precious reputation. Imagine how their charity boards will react. And option 2, he asked hesitantly. We use this as leverage for a clean break. A fair property settlement from your trust fund, enough for our own house. I keep my job. And they never contact me about childcare again. The confrontation happened in Margaret's study. I presented the evidence calmly while Jennifer turned scarlet and Margaret's face drained of color. You wouldn't dare, Jennifer spat. You'll never work in this town again. Actually, I said with a smile, I've already accepted a position as head of elementary education at Riverside Academy. They're thrilled about my dedication to children's welfare. Margaret's hands trembled as she reached for her phone. I'll call our lawyer. An excellent idea, I replied. I'm sure the labor board would be very interested in your attempts to coerce domestic servitude. Within a week, the settlement was signed. Mark and I moved into a lovely house across town. He started therapy to confront years of manipulation. Jennifer finally hired a professional nanny with benefits. Margaret, desperate to restore her reputation, joined 3 more charity boards. I see her occasionally at school events, where I'm now principal. She pretends not to see me. I don't mind. The other day, Emma, now in high school, stopped by my office. I miss you, Aunt Vicky, she said softly. But I'm glad you stood up to them. You taught me something important. What's that? I asked. That family duty doesn't mean letting people abuse your kindness. I smiled, thinking of how far I'd come from that overwhelmed teacher in the guest house. Sometimes the strongest family bonds are the ones you choose to break. Looking back, I realized standing up to Margaret and Jennifer wasn't just about ending their exploitation. It was about teaching their children, and myself, that real family lifts you up, not tears you down. What would you have done in my situation? Gone public or taken the settlement?